Whither continuing education. Continuing education program is the latest in the field of adult literacy, and it has been designed so as to crown the past efforts and achievements in the field of adult education world over. If understood in its full potential, it has all the ingredients to trigger a development explosion. Other than making everyone literate, it has the mandate to implement equivalency programs, quality of life improvement programs, income generation programs, and individual interest promotion programs. Future-oriented programs is yet another in the list. These components include all the activities of all the government departments and those of NGOs, CBOs, and similar groups. State Resource Center Chennai has been running 2 sets of experimental continuing education centers, 10 of them in Pudukkottai district and 4 of them in Namakkal district. This experience has taught us that continuing education program hinges on 2 main activities: mobilization of people and coordination of all the developmental activities. The Continuing Education Center has to serve as the extension of all the development departments and as a single window information center. It must have the facility for conducting discussions, besides providing a library, reading room, space for games, and so on. Moreover, as per design, the Continuing Education Center will be handed over to the local bodies after a period of time, which fulfills the intention of the designers of the program that people should own the program. Continuing education program is intended to be the program of the people, to be carried out by the people, for the benefit of the people. Mobilization of people happens when people are made aware of their life situation and capacitated to realize the need for change and motivated to make efforts to change their lives for the better after identifying the agents of change and making use of them to the extent they need them. This calls for enhancement of their knowledge that results in change in their attitude and behavior. Attitudinal and behavioral changes take place only in groups. In communication parlance, the group serves as the best medium of communication to effect changes in the attitudes and behaviors of people. How did it happen? After meeting the people informally to get acquainted with them, we identified the opinion leaders of the village and held informal discussions with them to get them to know the kind of programs we had in mind. The reception was amazing. Though the common man in the village came out with a list of problems to be solved in the preliminary meetings, when we got acquainted, the demands were scaled down and only the needs that bound them emotionally surfaced. In the meantime, we zeroed in on the prerats who could facilitate the process even during our absence. Each experiment started in a meeting with the district collectors who showed great interest in the experimental programs. District Continuing Education Committee. This is the highest level committee in a district, chaired by the district collector himself. Heads of all the development departments are the members of this committee, including the district adult education officer and district coordinator of continuing education program. There are representatives from educational institutions, non-governmental organizations, community-based organizations, industry, business, self-help groups, and so on. Block Continuing Education Committee. Block Continuing Education Committee is headed by the Block Development Officer. All the representatives of various government departments are its members, including the Block Program Coordinator. There are also representatives from educational institutions, NGOs, CBOs, industry, business, self-help groups, and so on. Panchayat Continuing Education Committee. Panchayat Education Committee is headed by the Panchayat President. All the representatives of various government departments like Anganwadi worker, village health worker or its members, including the Continuing Education Prerak and Assistant Prerak. There will also be representatives from educational institutions, NGOs, CBOs, industry, business, self-help groups, and so on. Pre-survey. A pre-survey was conducted with the help of an interview schedule. All the data collected were fed into the computer for data processing. A sports day was conducted to give life to the program and involve all the people. The whole village wore a festive look, and the enthusiasm of people knew no bounds. Participatory community appraisal. Participatory community appraisal followed the pre-survey. The approach, true to its title, aimed at making the exercise a participatory one, helping the people to assess their own surroundings, problems and opportunities. Tools like models, sketch maps, preference ranks and matrices, historical time frame, seasonal calendars, and transects came in handy to make the exercise effective. The participation in all the 4 panchayats was overwhelming. Neighborhood community groups. The major challenge before us was the promotion of the concept of neighborhood community groups. Though people always function in groups that develop due to various complex and inscrutable considerations, forming groups with some intended goals does not happen naturally. The task was accomplished by regular visits by field staff and meeting the people, starting from the village head to the other influential persons, youth forums, and so on. The process ended with people volunteering to form in small groups as they understood the dynamics and strength of functioning in groups. About 30 families, geographically placed together, formed one neighborhood community group. Parliaments and Cabinet of Ministers. Each group, which can be also termed as a parliament, selected 5 representatives whom they called ministers to attend to matters regarding education, health and sanitation, women and children's development, income generation, and sports and culture. The Minister for Education, for instance, represented the educational needs of the neighborhood community group. The number of children not yet enrolled in schools, number of dropouts from schools, illiterates who needed to learn to read and write, adults and boys and girls who have completed standard 10 or plus 2 and are looking for avenues to further studies have been identified. In short, the Minister of Education identified the educational needs of the NCG. Similarly, each minister took charge of the area of concern allotted to them. Subcommittees of ministers. There were about 450 families in one of the panchayats, and there were 15 ministers for education who formed a subcommittee of ministers of education. This subcommittee took care of the educational needs of the whole panchayat. The areas of health and sanitation, women and children's development, income generation, sports and culture also had their ministers and subcommittees of ministers. After the formation of NCGs, the data sheets were given to the ministers to verify and make alterations if necessary. This process facilitated the collection of the exact data from the grassroots. With the help of the data collected, we could get the true profile of the panchayat. Special groups. In the experimental centers, special groups also were formed to suit the needs of different sections of people, namely adolescents groups, youth groups, and self-help groups. Other groups like farmers groups and weavers groups can also be formed depending upon the needs of the panchayats where they operate. In such groups, the special interests of each group is taken care of. Those who do not have a chance to express themselves in the neighborhood community groups can make their voices heard in these groups, which also will be represented in the higher level committees. Bottom-up planning. Our experiment in bottom-up and need-based planning by the partners themselves have met with good response. People in small groups have now started to air their views and suggestions for development, which are transformed into action by the functional ministers in the NCG. This experiment is only a beginning, and much has to be done to sustain the initiatives.